Boom. 4 o'clock. I think it's 4 o'clock. It's time for tea. Everybody, welcome to PMD's afternoon tea session today on Friday. I hope you're all well. I'm your host, Nalanja Silva, and I'm going to be taking you through afternoon tea. We usually do afternoon tea here in my home. Usually at 4 o'clock, I sit down for a cup of tea. But today we're doing something a little different. We've got some people joining in. See that Indranil's joined in from Colombo. Hello. Hope you're well, Indranil. Hope you're not drinking any of these teas because I'm pretty sure it's quite late over there. Just Singh's joined in. Nanda Naidu's watching. So good to see that some people are coming on. It's 4. So I'm going to take you through how you would do a normal afternoon tea, and a lot of what we're going to be tasting today is actually things that that we've made here at home. Not I, my wife is looking over. So all the food has actually been made here at home, and I'll be taking you through the courses of an afternoon tea. And I'll also be pairing these to some of our teas. So 3 teas that you're going to get over the course of the session will be our Planters breakfast, afternoon, and Earl Grey tea. And I'm also going to be bringing on this side of the screen, you'll also be seeing some other teas that I would recommend if you already like the afternoons and the breakfast and you want to try something different. What else you could try? I'll be giving you some options. So when you sit down for afternoon tea, which is a ritual here in the UK, it started off with Anna, Duchess of Bedford. She was an aristocratic lady who wanted something, between lunch and dinner. She wanted a meal, and it started off with finger sandwiches. It started off with scones. It started off with dainty pastries, and it became this thing that we enjoy nationally and also internationally. So the first course of an afternoon tea is sandwiches, and I've got my first course of sandwiches here, very simply made. We've got if I hold the tray up here, we've got a cheese and tomato sandwich with some mixed herbs on top, and behind it, like I said, my wife made these, so she wanted to go out, and she's made a egg and truffle mayo sandwich with some sprinkling of black pepper on top as well. So 2 simple sandwiches that you can make at home. It doesn't take, you don't need to be Gordon Ramsay to make these. I'm going to start off with the tomato sandwich first, the cheese and tomato, and I'll be telling you which teas to pair these to. Now, the 2 teas that I've got here are our Planters breakfast tea that you can buy in loose leaf and also in tea bags. And then I've got a limited edition tea that we have here in the company, which is from a single estate. So to give you guys a bit of an idea, the first tea that we've got here is the breakfast. This is a blended tea. So this means that it's from multiple tea estates, and we've, married multiple flavors in to create our signature breakfast taste and flavor. The tea on this side of the screen, the St. James, this is from one single tea estate. It's not from multiple estates. We haven't blended this. Stephen McAllister says, I'm making him feel hungry. Well, when this is all over, Steve, we'll get together and we'll have some afternoon tea. Like I was saying, this St. James tea, this is a tea that is from one single tea estate. The taste and flavor that you get from here is unique to that particular tea estate. You will not recreate this flavor ever again. So let me start with our breakfast tea. The leaf that we've used in this tea is known as BOP. It stands for broken orange pecker. It means that it's a small particle leaf, and one of the reasons why it's small particle leaf is that this tea, the estates that we use are all high-grown estates. They grow on the western side of Sri Lanka, and this is where that signature classic English breakfast flavor came from initially. So these are high-grown estates growing north of 4,500 feet, and this is the type of tea that they tend to make. It's known as BOP. One of the reasons is, and you'll see this as I bring one of my final teas in, the higher up in elevation you go, the lighter your tea becomes. Now, if you want to have thickness, you need to have a smaller particle size, which is why you've got a smaller particle size here in this BOP. You get thickness, and if I tilt my cup over, you'll be able to see what almost dripping that in. The cup color here is far, far darker. If you guys watch us on Instagram after this, I'll tag all the pictures for different cup colors. So a BOP will give you a thicker, brisker, bolder cup, ideal for stronger tasting foods. With this St. James tea, which is from the Malvatta Valley, which is on a completely different region to where we source the breakfast from. This is in Uva region. The tea grows again around 5,000 feet, but the leaf here is a little bit larger. It's a Pecco grade of tea. But the key point here is less about leaf size. It's more about the season of when this tea was made. So Uva teas go into a flavory or seasonal time during the months of July to August. It doesn't happen every year, and each year the season changes year to year. This particular tea was picked in 2019 in August. Each bag is numbered, so if you're buying a bag, you will actually see the number of what you bought. And what's wonderful about this tea is during those months of when Uva teas go into the season, you put your bush under stress, and when you hand pick your bush, both these teas are hand picked, you get this mentholated flavor that comes through. And if you actually nose the leaf here, that's one of the big notes that you get coming out of this, is this, mentholated wintergreen, note that comes out. Whereas if I compare it here to the breakfast tea, it's much more forest flavored, it's much more oaky, much more malty in some ways as well. So let's actually get on to tasting tea. One way I would always recommend when you're having your afternoon tea is to bite into your sandwich first. So bite in, get an idea of the flavor, and then have it with a bit of tea. Starting off with the breakfast tea. Before I choke. So those two flavors work really well. One thing you would have noticed is that I haven't added milk to either of these cups. One of the reasons why I haven't added milk to either of these cups is that not that they both can't take milk. Both can take milk. However, because this is a cheese and tomato sandwich, the cheese almost doubles up as milk in your cup. So try your tea plain. If you've never tried it plain, try it plain, especially if you're having a cheese and tomato sandwich. The cheese in your sandwich will almost double up as your milk for this type of bold brisk tea. If you were to drink this plain, without any food or without any milk, now that is obviously not the way that your mother told you how to drink tea, but we as tasters, we taste tea and then we draw in air. And by drawing in air, you actually taste the full spectrum of what that tea is about. It has a boldness, it has a briskness. There's a certain amount of strength. When you actually taste this with this particular sandwich, it gives a degree of mellowness to it, and that cheese works really well with that thick, bold, and brisk flavor. If you compare the same sandwich now to the St. James, if I taste the St. James on its own, well, that's a very different tea. Far, far different. Very cool, very mentholated. You get that big wintergreen note coming through in this tea. If you've never tried Uva teas, this is a wonderful way to introduce yourself to it. This tea comes from a valley known as the Malvatta Valley. It loosely translates into the Flower Garden Valley, and within this valley you will find some fantastic teas, some fantastic tea estates. So St. James is one of them, Uva Highlands is another, and if you look at all the top Uva producing estates, you'll find them inside the Malvatta Valley. If we compare that to trying it with this sandwich here, again, there's balance, but one thing you do find is that because this has a larger leaf, it doesn't have as much thickness to the cup. It's not as bold, and it doesn't stand up as well as the Planter's Afternoon. How does it change if you move to something else? Well, here we've got an egg and truffle mayo sandwich with some pepper on top. I'm going to try this first with the St. James. So get the next tea going. So with that, with the St. James, there's a real harmony of flavor there between the two of them. Partly because that winter greenness seems to really work well with the white bread. Also the cracked black pepper on top actually really marries the two flavors up very, very well. That is a very nice pairing actually, and that's actually the first time we've actually tried this. If we were to compare this to the breakfast tea, it's really interesting. The pairing works, but one thing you tend to find is that with the breakfast tea and this particular sandwich, the breakfast somewhat overpowers the sandwich a little. Whereas with the St. James, you've got a nice pairing between the two of them where both are working in harmony. With the breakfast, simply because it's stronger, it's thicker, it overpowers the sandwich just ever so much. So part of the truffle flavor that you get in this sandwich is actually lost. Whereas with St. James, you don't get that. And it just goes to show how different tea is. You can't just group tea as this one type of thing. They're both black teas, yes. Different leaf grades. They're from, two different parts of the same country. But when it comes to food, it really does affect, how well those two pairings work. So from my perspective, if you're tasting at home, Planter's breakfast for something like a cheese and tomato sandwich, and make sure that you're having that Planter's breakfast without any milk. And if you're going for something like egg truffle and mayo, try something like the St. James because that creates a very nice pairing. So that's our first course of food. I'm actually going to move this over, and I'm going to go on to the next course and actually wait for my next teas. So give me a second. If you guys have questions, keep until the end, and I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. Nanda Naidu, send some to us, Darren. Well, I'd love to send you some, Nanda, but the problem is that I'll be breaking the social distancing rules. So hopefully afterwards we can send you some. But I've got the next course for afternoon tea usually is scones. So I've got some scones coming over, and what we're doing this time is we're doing plain scones. We're doing plain scones where usually when you go for afternoon tea, you can get you're given a choice between raisin and plain. Some hotels that we supply tea into, like the Rubens, are also doing cheese scones. And if you want to know more about what would pair well with a cheese scone, watch episode, I believe it's 63 of the PMD Tea Buyers Club on YouTube. Subscribe to that, have a look, because a cheese scone will give you a completely different pairing. So I've got my scones up here, and I've just got plain scones this time with clotted cream and jam. These are all homemade. We couldn't actually find any clotted cream in the stores, but if you can't find any clotted cream, one little thing to try would be to take double cream, put it in a bowl, whip it up, add some icing sugar, and use that as your clotted cream. I say that like an expert. I'm not actually the one who did it. So credit to where credit is due. I'm going to break my scone in half. Now, how do you all like to have your scone? Should I put my jam first or cream first? I'll leave it up to you guys. If you have any ideas, tell me in the comment section while I'm waiting for my tea how you like to have your scones. Do I put my cream first or jam first? I'm going to go with both, because I think usually when I do this, there tends to be people who like cream first and also jam first. So to please both sides of the aisle, I'm going to put cream on this one, and then add my jam. Yep, send the tea over. Jam this one up. Sam, cream first. Well, Sam, that's exactly what I've done. I've got cream first on this one. So for the other one, I'm actually going to put the jam first and see if it makes a difference. I personally don't like to put my jam first. I'm more of a cream first kind of guy. I think I'm going to show you exactly why I like to have cream first. I think one reason I like cream first is because, look, if my thought is this: if you're buttering your toast, if you're putting butter and jam on your toast, do you ever put the jam first on your toast? No, you always put the butter, don't you? So if we add this, I'm going to add my cream on top. I've never seen my scone ever look like this. It's always looked the other way. But there's a first for everything. So I've got my tea coming over, and I've got two very different teas this time for this particular course. The first tea that I've got is our Planter's Afternoon. Now our Planter's Afternoon is very different to our Planter's Breakfast. Again, it's a blended tea. Again, it uses a BOP leaf, a broken orange pecco. But unlike the Planter's Breakfast, it grows on the eastern side. The Planter's Breakfast grows predominantly on the west. The Planter's Afternoon grows on the east. Unlike the St. James, it is not a seasonal tea, because seasonal teas like St. James, you get a small window and you don't have it every year. So to have consistency in our afternoon tea, we always go with a blend. So we're able to have consistency, unlike having a single estate. But I do have a single estate tea in this pairing, and this particular tea is from Inverness Tea Estate. Now Inverness is right up there. It's about 5,500, almost 6,000 feet, touching into the Norelia region, and it produces a very different type of leaf. Now, in the last two, you saw the smaller leaf manufacture. Inverness uses the orthodox way of making tea, and they produce a large leafy OP1 grade of tea. So very different. I'm just waiting for the two teas to come over. My assistant is taking a little longer than what I expected. I mean, you just can't find the labour these days, can you? But she has done well with the scones. In fact, leave a like for my wife, who's done a cracking job with the food, guys. Babe, that's fine. Just send it over. Thank you very much. Here we go. So, two teas again that you can pair up. I'll show you the leaf sizes. So here I've got our Planter's Afternoon, and you can buy 100 grams for £8. And if you are buying 100 grams for £8, we've got global shipping anywhere in the world, and we seem to be hitting everyone within less than 5 days. If you're in the UK, you're getting shipping virtually next day. Here I've got the Inverness. Look at the difference in leaf style. This is the BOP, this is the OP1. OP stands for orange pecco, BOP stands for broken orange pecco, and again in cup colors they look very, very different. Like I said, I'll put this up on I'll put this up on Instagram so you can see the difference in cup. Because this has a smaller leaf grade, this is a far darker cup. Here, this is much more orangey, a little golden rim around the edge. If we would actually nose the infusers, what do they smell like? Well, this one you get much more of a cherry stone note from it. Big floral note coming through. Bit of blackcurrant. In the Inverness, what do you get? Well, this is much, much more floral. It's far lighter, it's much more floral. You don't get that cherry note coming out. It smells like fresh cut flowers, actually. So a big difference in the two teas, partly down to leaf size, also down to where we make the tea. And again, like I said, with the breakfast, this is a blended tea. It gives us consistency all the way through the year. And here with the Inverness, this is again a seasonal tea, Jehesh bakes, cream first. If you put the jam first, the cream will slide off. I totally agree. I completely agree, but to keep both sides of the aisle happy, I've done both. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the cream first, which is the one how I usually have it, and I'll tell you which one it pairs well with. Now, one thing that I would recommend is that both of these teas will pair well with scones. However, if you like to have milk with your tea, if you want to have milk with your tea, I would recommend having the Planter's Afternoon. The smaller leaf grade and the darker cup will actually take milk far, far better. If you don't want to have milk in your tea and you want to try just plain tea, on its own, go for the Inverness. If you add milk to this cup, you will end up overpowering the cup. The milk will overpower it. It doesn't have the thickness. It doesn't have the body to take milk. So if you want scone with tea, plain, go for the Inverness. If you want to add a drop of milk, have it with the Afternoon. But how does it taste? Well, first of all, the scone gets 10 out of 10. That is cracking. With the afternoon tea, it pairs really well. The doughiness of the scone, the thickness of the afternoon tea, of the afternoon blend here, they complement each other. You can add a drop of milk to this. I haven't actually added a drop of milk simply because I've got quite a lot of cream on my scone. If I was to pair that with the Inverness, and this time I'll do the jam first. I'll see if that makes any difference. So here we go. Is there a difference with jam first or cream first? I don't think so. Certainly not that I can taste. But one difference I do get is that the bottom of this scone, which is actually the top of the scone, has sugar on it. So you get that added sweetness to this. But again, it pairs really well. I would say if you're adding milk, go with this. If you're not adding milk, stick with the Inverness. Inverness is one of my favorite estates. I was up there recently back in January. It's one of the few high-grown estates that actually make large leafy manufactured teas. And if you want to know what a classic afternoon tea was like, a classic, Ceylon orange pekoe high-grown afternoon tea, check out the Inverness. I believe it's also on special on the website as well. It'll give you a great idea of what a classic orange pekoe high-grown tastes like. If you want something that you can add a bit of milk, go with this one. I'm going to have another dig of this scone before the next two teas come over. Some of the comments here. Leanne Frampton Anderson, scones look amazing. Yes, Leanne, they are. Tom Meal is watching. Declan Paddy Quirk, which one do you have? I don't know where Declan Paddy Quirk is right now, Tom. So I can't answer that. And there's also another question here, if I can just get down to it. Jayesh Bakes, can you actually smell those individual smells, or do you smell those notes because you know they're in there? Jayesh, when it comes to smell and taste, this is something that everyone should take home. If you actually smell a tea, a well-made orthodox tea should have aroma to it. And if you actually smell it, you will definitely get the aroma of this tea. Now, here's the thing. Tea is a subjective thing. How people enjoy tea is subjective, and also what people smell in tea, again, is subjective, which is why whenever we train within food and beverage teams in hotels, I always tell them, look, don't take my tasting notes for this. This is my perspective on this particular tea, right? If we were to ask my wife, she would taste something different. If you were to smell this, you might smell, popcorn for all I know. It'll come down to your own individual subjective experiences, which is why when I always recommend that you try tea, it's such a subjective thing. Take our guidance, but experiment with it for your own taste and flavor. For example, even when you brew tea, with the Planter's Afternoon, both these teas have been brewed for 5 minutes. With the Planter's Afternoon, I like to brew it for 5 minutes, but honestly, when I'm doing something like the Inverness, if I'm having it personally for myself, I'd like to brew it for 4 minutes. Certain other teas like a Lover's Leap, or sometimes when I'm having a first flush Darjeeling, I'll brew those for up to for maybe 3 minutes. And you've got another question: which of your tea is best with milk and sugar, in your opinion? Well, the Planter's Breakfast is great with milk. The Planter's Afternoon is great with milk. Which tea is good with sugar? I would recommend no tea with sugar. The minute you add sugar to tea, you actually end up losing the flavor of it. And one of the reasons why people actually put sugar in tea is that when early planters came over to India and over to Ceylon, they built the plantation model that they had pioneered in the Caribbean. And a lot of these planters used to, own or work on sugar plantations. And the same owners of sugarcane plantations realized that people would, that tea drinking was increasing in Britain, and that if they recommended through the Empire Marketing Board people to add 2 sugars, their stock price in their sugar plantations would also increase in the way that in the way their stock prices in their tea plantations were increasing. So that is why in Britain, in old colonial countries like in India, in South Africa, in Australia, you find the concept of people adding sugar to tea. If you go over to China, to South Korea, and you bring up the concept of adding sugar into tea, people look at you like, why would you do it? So that's actually one of the reasons due to the history of why you add sugar. So I would recommend no sugar in any of these teas, but milk, something with the smaller BOPs. Tom Meal, can you deliver scones as well as tea? Well, Tom, I think if coronavirus carries on, we're all going to have to diversify and look at different avenues. It's certainly something that can come up there. Suzanne Dury, the scones look great. Do you mail order? Well, if the demand is there, we'll definitely do it. If the demand is there, we'll definitely look at doing some scones. So I've got my final selection of teas coming over. For the final course, usually you get pastries. Now, a lot of people, maybe don't have the cooking skills to make pastries at home. So we've actually gone for some biscuits. I've got another question here. Leanne, when I leave tea to brew for 4 minutes, the tea gets cold. Does that improve the flavor? Do you always brew in a teapot? So at home, Leanne, yes, I always brew in a teapot. And I always recommend that if you're brewing a tea, you brew it for at least 3 minutes. Brew your tea for at least 3 minutes. And the reason is that if you're doing a black tea, on the outside of a tea leaf, because you've left your black tea to oxidize, on the outside of a tea leaf, you get a caramelized layer that forms. When you pour boiling hot water, you burn off that caramelized layer on the outside of the tea leaf. From that point, that takes about 30 seconds. So when you pour your boiling hot water in, stir the teapot, put the lid on. It's very important to put a lid on top of your teapot. From 30 seconds onwards till you get to 3 minutes, you get theanine that starts to come out in your tea. And this is where, the good stuff in your tea comes out, the polyphenols that start to come out. This is where the goodness is in your tea. It takes about 3 minutes for that to happen. From 3 minutes onwards, you start to get the tannin that comes through, and this is what adds the bitterness. The theanine gives you the sweetness in your tea. The 3 minutes onwards, the tannin starts to give you the bitterness, and which is why I say brew each tea specific to you. Try it at 3 minutes, try it at 4 minutes, try it at 5 minutes, and see which is the sweet spot for you. But at least leave your tea in your teapot for up to 3 minutes, and no more than 5 minutes, because after 5 you'll end up overbrewing it. So a 4-minute brew is right in the middle. Stick it in the microwave if it gets cold. You could also do that, Tom, yes. Like I said, tea is a subjective thing, It's a subjective thing, it's how you enjoy it. But yes, I always have my tea in a teapot. I'm just going to clear up this course. So usually when you go for afternoon tea, you get your pastries. Now, like I was saying, if you're not gifted in the kitchen, or maybe you want something simple for afternoon tea, one of the options you can try is a simple biscuit. Now I've got some all butter biscuits that I'm going to be doing with this course, and I've got 2 very different teas. Now, the final tea I've got here is from our Planters range of tea, which is our Planters Earl Grey. I'll move this over here for a second. So our Planters Earl Grey is a black tea that is blended with bergamot oil. For those of you who don't know, bergamot is a citrus type fruit that grows in Mediterranean countries. So in southern Italy, bergamot grows, and it's a citrus type fruit, and we actually add a bit of that oil into this tea, and that's what gives Earl Grey that smell and that flavor. On the left hand side, I've gone for another single estate, a little bit different, and it's actually a tea from Lover's Leap Tea Estate. It's one of my favorite estates. It's right up in Norelia. It's one of 3 estates that produce this yellowy cup of Norelia teas. If you go anywhere else outside of Norelia, you will not find this yellowy cup. So there's 3 estates that give you this yellowy cup. Lover's Leap is one of them. Another name for Lover's Leap is Mahagostoro. Court Lodge gives it, and also Kenmare. And it's that specific area that gives you this type of this type of tea. Now, what have I got here? I've got some all butter biscuits. These are made by Biscuitivity. So if you guys are on Instagram, go off and follow Biscuitivity. It's my little sister. She's the sister that I never wanted but got. Charlie, I'm joking. Johan Benjamin is in. Johan, I hope you're keeping well. You know, wherever you are in the world, I think you're somewhere in the Middle East at the moment. I hope you're keeping well, buddy. So I've got these biscuits. I've been told not to eat them because my wife wants to eat them for all her for all her work that she's been doing. But I have got some biscuits, a little like on Blue Peter, that were baked for me before. So this is what I'm going to be trying this particular course with. So I'm going to start off with the Earl Grey. What does this taste like? The comment here, really interesting. Thank you to the chef. So, chef, well done. Earl Grey, a classic afternoon tea. If you want something light, it's not too strong, with a little hint of bergamot, this is the perfect Earl Grey for you. A lot of people don't like Earl Grey, and that's partly due to the reason that people overscent Earl Grey with artificial bergamot oil, and you get that, you open a packet up, it smells like a massage parlor in your house. This one, much lighter. It doesn't have that big kick. If we look at the Lover's Leap, this is a very light cup. I'll try and actually show you the cup color if you can see. If I hold it there, can everyone see the cup color? Almost. Like I said, I'll tag these in Instagram. A yellow cup, very light tea, doesn't have a lot of body, not a tea that you would drink with milk. But here, if we were to taste this one, much lighter, but you get this, cool mentholated flavor coming out of this tea, and that happens naturally. And one of the reasons why that happens in this tea is because in Noor Elia, you have wild eucalyptus and mint that grows. Plus, unlike the other two estates we've shown you, this is growing at a far higher elevation. It's growing at 6,000 feet. So the higher up in elevation you go, the lighter your tea will be. Today we look at tea as what you get in a tea bag. It's the same dark, thick colored cup. This is not what tea is. If you drink single estate tea or you drink well blended teas, each tea estate, each region, each valley, each particular side of a tea estate, has its own unique flavor that comes through from the bush. Now, what does that? Well, soil condition does it. The specific types of plant does it. The weather patterns do it. The microclimate in that particular area, elevation does it. There are all of these factors that come in that make each particular tea very, very special. So if you've just got into drinking single estate teas or you've never tried, go online and have a look at some of our single estates. We're hoping to get some of our bestsellers back in, like the new Vithanakanda. That's a cracking estate. One of my favorites that's growing at a lower elevation. But each tea estate will have its unique flavor. And I've chosen both of these because they're very different. Here we've added a bit of flavor to it to give it its characteristic. Here, this is all nature. So I'm actually going to bite into one of these biscuits. Here we go. L Smith, how can we order? Well, if you go to pmdt.com, L, you can place your orders there. We're dispatching every day. So a butter biscuit, what would it work well with? Well, I'm going to start with the Earl Grey first. Now, because there's a bit of icing on this, the sweetness on this biscuit and the bergamot note work really well together. Now, I just have a feeling, I brought this tea out just to see how this works with the biscuit. I have a feeling that because this Lover's Leap has quite a thin body, it might be overpowered by this biscuit. Let's see. It pairs well. It works well with the icing on the top of the biscuit, but the actual base of the biscuit overpowers that cup there. And that's partly due to the fact that the cup is so light. So if I maybe try and hold it like that, I don't think you guys can see, but like I said, I'll put it on Instagram. Because the cup is so light, it lacks the thickness, it lacks the body. The base of that biscuit ends up overpowering it. Whereas with the Earl Grey, again, you've got great harmony. The Earl Grey is a far darker cup, so the body sits there. The sweetness from the bergamot comes through as well. The citrusy note works really well with the icing. So a cracking pairing there. Where would I use this Lover's Leap? Usually where I recommend this is with desserts that have, or pastries that have mango, things that have citrus in them. So like a lemon possum dessert, mango, passion fruit, these types of, as we're going into spring, into summer, on a traditional afternoon tea menu, this is where I'd recommend having this Lover's Leap. And again, having it plain with no milk. If you add a drop of milk to this, you will completely overpower the cup and all you'll taste is the milk. In fact, the beauty in this cup where you've got this golden cup color won't even come through because it'll turn a yellowy, milky color. Earl Grey, I usually like to have it plain. Tell me how you guys like to have your Earl Grey. My wife likes to add a bit of milk to hers. It's out there. Like I said, tea is subjective. But if you try our Earl Grey and you like it, one tea that you might want to try is our Planter's Mistress, which is a new tea that we brought on to the company about a year or so back. And this is a tea that has black tea, bergamot, but we've also added orange and lemon peel to it as well. And that gives a little bit more of a citrusy note to your tea. Right at the end, can we see the person who baked the scones at the end? Kirsty, you want to come on and show yourself for a second? Come on and show yourself. Wave to everyone. Elle Smith, I'm not actually a tea drinker. Can you suggest and recommend a tea to try, please? Well, Elle, I would recommend. We've got taster samples on the website. They're about 10 grams each. I would recommend, if you want to start off with a tea, try something like the Inverness. It's a light tea. It's not too strong. It's not too light. Try the Inverness and also try the Planter's Breakfast as well. It'll give you two great opposites of tea. One tea that you can enjoy without milk, and one with milk. Chef, do you want to come on and wave to the nation? No? Come in quickly and wave to the nation. So to everyone who wanted to know who the chef is, this is my wife Carissa, who's
I'm not dressed up for the occasion, sadly.
She's not dressed up for the occasion, so maybe we'll do another one. If you enjoyed it, let us know. Leanne, I like Earl Grey with milk usually, but I tasted your Earl Grey. I enjoyed it without milk. So that's it. Try different things. If you tried the Earl Grey, try out the Planter's Mistress and see if you like that with or without milk. And there's a great story behind why it's called Planter's Mistress as well. I think if you watch episode 65 of the PMD Tea Buyers Club, you can see why it's called Planter's Mistress. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I think we're coming to the end of our live session. What did you think of it? What did you think of it? Did you like it? What could we do differently? Would you want us to do this again differently? Big thanks to Biscuitivity for sending these biscuits through. I'm definitely going to have a taste of these after the show is finished with my wife. I've been told not to touch them, but thank you to her. Thank you to my wife also for organising this, and thank you to everyone who came and watched it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. Jump onto pmdt.com, try out some of our teas, and go on your own tea journey. Thank you very much, guys.